the mother of all environmental scare tactics. The left, groups on the left, understood that if you can control energy, you can control human beings.
Welcome back to Moose on the Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Justin Trudeau backstabbing his own party for his own benefit. This guy has no lows he won't stoop to stay in power, to serve his own agenda. Justin Trudeau also has a sneaky plan to stay in power, which has some potential here. So we need to talk about that, as well as we've got the woke left, the WF, complaining about rice. We've got Bill Gates. We've got Kamala Harris. So let's jump into this. In our top story, we're talking about this here, a new by-election that's coming up. So we've got Elmwood, Transcona, and La Selle-Émard-Verdun. Most notably, the second one here, which is in Quebec. Now, Justin Trudeau had to call these by-elections by the 30th of July, and he has, and now there's September 16th. Both these by-elections are going to happen. So why are we talking about this? Well, the second one here, La Selle, this one has 3 nominees, Liberal nominees, that have been campaigning for this. They've been out door knocking. They've all been trying to fight for this position. And what has Justin Trudeau done? He has gone and completely backstabbed these people and just handpicked somebody after they did all of the work, which I can only imagine is dozens and dozens and dozens of hours of work. So what we've got here is this candidate here. Her name is Laura Pastini, and this is the candidate Justin Trudeau's handpicked. After we got 3 aspiring candidates here, this from this article here on the Globe and Mail, a local school commissioner, Laurie Morrison, an entrepreneur, Christopher Binginger, and former Quebec Liberal Party organizer Eddie Cara. So all 3 of them, they denounced the decision, with Miss Morrison calling it anti-democratic 100%. Miss Morrison said she couldn't believe the party let her knock on doors and sign up memberships only to ultimately abandon plans for a nomination meeting. The nomination to become a candidate in La Selle-Émard-Verdun, Miss Morrison said, was hotly contested because the riding has been a Liberal stronghold for a very, very long time. Liberal campaign co-chair Sararia Martinez Veranda said it was Mr. Trudeau's decision to prevent party members from choosing the candidate and instead select Miss Pastini, who represents La Selle Borough on Montreal City Council. Now, in true Trudeau Liberal fashion, they declined to take any interviews on this and just made a statement. This news comes with Mr. Binginger, one of the candidates, saying he was in shock at Mr. Trudeau's decision to forego the nomination process and handpick a candidate, saying it was not right and demotivating. Yeah, I bet. Ms. Morrison refused to say whether the party is respecting its values by disregarding a nomination vote. Mr. Binginger, meanwhile, said the decision falls within the rules. The party's vetting committee, he explained, can reject any candidates in the best interest of the party. So legally, he's allowed to do this, but it is a dirty move. He's just a dirty rat, as usual. However, Mr. Binginger said the party didn't do itself any favors by pushing 3 candidates aside in favor of Miss Pastini. I'm going to be shrewd. We didn't improve our chances. I'll leave it at that. So this guy's just ripping Trudeau here. Both Mr. Binginger and Miss Morrison said that before Miss Pastini was announced by the party, they'd never heard the name before. Mr. Cara, a filmmaker and former provincial Liberal organizer, had the support of former Quebec Finance Minister Carlos Letao and ex-MP Jean-Claude Poissant. He said it's really shocking that Mr. Trudeau interrupted the nomination process, adding that the party sent signals that the members would choose a candidate, including publishing a nomination kit. So Trudeau puts the cheese out there, hoping all the little rats come out, and he just stabs them all in the back, like the true authoritarian schmuck he is. What does this come down to? Why did Trudeau handpick Miss Pastini instead of allowing these people run for it? Well, it says here, he said he learned that the Liberals wanted someone of Italian origin to ensure we get the Italian vote. Simply, Trudeau is picking her because he thinks because she's of Italian descent, she'll get more votes. And really, this whole process here says a lot about Trudeau and his character and the kind of guy he is. Like, he just doesn't care about anyone but himself. I mean, we've got Jasper burning down, and he was warned about this, and he's just on vacation, does not care. He's such a loser. We have the biggest loser for a prime minister ever. And with being such a loser that Justin Trudeau is, he's looking for ways to stay in power now, and he knows he's lost too much support with just the Liberals. So he's got a secret plan here to potentially merge with the NDP and the Greens to stay in power. This is something that they're picking up from France, that France just did. And this has potential, which is scary because we got to get this guy out of power. He's destroying our country. So we've got a clip here from Karima, lawyer here, where she got into a liberal barbecue and was talking with some of the insiders there, and this is what her take is on it. What we got here is a bunch of guys with the F Trudeau flags. They're anti-Justin Trudeau liberals, and they protest as many of these events they can find out about.
Yeah.
This was a plan all along? You guys were going to come protest?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. I knew about this for a little while. What sort of politics did they discuss?
They actually talked about the possibility of Liberal and NDP working together in advance of an election to only run one candidate in any given riding to avoid vote splitting.
Yeah. So they are uniparty anyway. They always have been. So
They were inspired, I think, by France.
this is the first step, right? To them becoming the one party, I guess.
So what's interesting about this is, while that does avoid vote splitting, you're going to vote split some of that anyways, because if we look at the polling numbers, so the latest polling numbers here, we've got 42% for the Conservatives, 24% for the Liberals, and 17% for the NDP, and then we'll add in the Greens later. If they all combine, say all three of them, 24 and 17, which is 41, plus 4 or 45, which is more than 42, right? So they would, based off of that math, they would win. But not everyone who supports Liberal would support NDP, and not everyone who supports NDP support Liberal. And same thing with Greens. Maybe people who vote for the Greens hate the Liberals or the NDP. So what those percentages are, I don't know. But I can only imagine that some of the people who are, say, NDP don't like that they're merging with the Liberals, and maybe then they look at another party like the Bloc or the Conservatives. So this would make for a very tight race if this were to happen. And this is the only way for Justin Trudeau to actually maintain power, because as you see the numbers here, he's getting decimated. I mean, this is a guy who's losing so bad that he's going to come up with dirty tactics, and even then, he's not coming up with these dirty tactics, he's just stealing it from France. This guy has no shame. Can he not just step down, just go raise his kids and surf in Tofino? Just leave us all alone. Like, we don't want this loser running our country. The other thing to think about is Justin Trudeau going to be then having Jagmeet as his deputy? Like, it just gets really messy. I don't even know how all that works with merging parties, but that seems like a messy situation. So next up, I want to show you a clip of the WF now talking about rice as being this terrible for the climate crop, which is absolutely ridiculous. But before I show you that, I want to show you this. So this is Chrystia Freeland with President Ajay Banga of the WF. And this is the guy you're about to see speaking on this situation. Now, I just want to show you this just to show you who this guy is connected to. I mean, this is right on Chrystia Freeland's own X account here. They're here to discuss how Canada and our international partners can help build a fair global economy, blah, blah, blah. We all know this is a bunch of garbage. This is the guy in the next clip. Posted by Wide Awake Media, it says, now they're coming after our rice to save the planet. So we've got more talk on climate change, and apparently rice now is a problem. This coming from, as you can see, the World Economic Forum, the WF.
What we have is an existential climate crisis. We've talked about methane. Methane from flaring is known, but rice paddy cultivation, waste management, and dairy husbandry can help you enormously with combating methane. Methane is 80 times more dangerous than carbon dioxide. It gets only 2% of climate financing today. We have a misalignment with what we need to focus on. We're talking about working with 15 countries and taking out 10 million tons of methane by focusing on rice paddy, on animal and dairy, and on waste management.
So rice paddies, waste management, and dairy husbandry. Where do these guys come up with this stuff? I've seen the data on dairy. I mean, it takes a lot of energy and grass and all that to space to grow cows, and then cows to create more cows. I understand that data, but rice? I have not seen one piece of data that shows that rice is some sort of big hindrance to the planet. You know, rice is grown in rice paddies. These are like wetland kind of areas that they, flat plateaus. These are areas where water collects. Now they terrace the land so they collect the water. So I guess technically you could plant some trees on these steep slopes, but it's usually steep slopes in valleys where it'll rain. And they've just terraced these little plateaus so the water collects so they can create rice paddies. I would love to see some data on that, because I've never heard anyone talk about rice as being a major problem for global warming, climate change, all that. And as it says here, rice is staple food for more than 3.5 billion people. So is it simply because it's such a widely produced crop that it has a larger carbon footprint because it's one of the most widely, if not the most widely consumed food on Earth? This is ridiculous. These guys are completely out to lunch. And you better hope it's not rice or dairy. These people are delusional power mongers. They're afraid of us, especially if we resist and say no. Just keeps getting more laughable. They still haven't given up on the eat bugs thing. And while we're talking about climate change here, we've got Bill Gates. He's talking about 6% global emissions are coming from cows and their farts and their burps. And he actually has a company apparently that is measuring this and trying to make it so cows don't fart and burp.
Australia is very blessed, whether it's wind or solar. It's quite phenomenal. And your land area per person, compared to, say, Singapore is pretty good. And so the opportunities created by a world that is getting rid of greenhouse gas emissions, Australia is rare in that the opportunities exceed the things you have to give up. You have to give up a large part of and eventually almost all of the coal mining activity. What happens with beef, my climate group, Breakthrough Energy, just announced literally today an investment in an Australian group called Ruminate that helps cows not be so much a source of methane emissions. So we have two paths to solving that. That's 6% of global emissions are cows who burp and fart methane to an extreme degree. You can either fix the cows to stop them doing that, or you can make beef without the cow. And both of those, will be pursued to see which one can lead to the best product in terms of taste, health, and cost.
Yeah, I don't think that getting cows to not burp and fart is going to be the way to go just because of the land usage. Basically, he's talking about the lab-grown meat. The math of the lab-grown meat makes way more sense. I just don't think anyone wants to eat meat that has been grown in a petri dish or, some sort of lab facility, because most people think that's disgusting and weird. Interesting that he is digging into trying to make cows not burp and fart. Can't say I ever thought I saw that coming. Creepy. No one wants to eat lab-grown meat with a whole bunch of hearts. Exactly. Nobody wants that. It's not natural. It's weird. In other words, give me money. He is shameless in his quest to make more money. What happened when we had millions of buffalo across this land? I guess they didn't fart as much. Yeah, I don't know how many buffalo there were. There's probably like a multitude more because how many cows they pack into these pens and stuff. It's probably not even comparable, but it is weird that he's trying to make them fart less. I think Bill Gates produces more emissions with his several lavish homes, yachts, private jets, etc. than all the cows on the planet combined. You know what's interesting? You look at the data, it is the millionaires, billionaires, they produce more CO2 than like a huge portion. I can't remember what the data is, like 60% of the average people. It's like outrageous. Next up, we got this clip here posted by Ryan Garrettson. Says one of the very reasons our government wants to mandate electric vehicles.
The Heartland Institute first started to address global warming back in 1993. And back in 1993, we identified that as the mother of all environmental scare tactics. The environmentalists, the left actually, not environmentalists, groups on the left, understood that if you can control energy, you can control human beings. And that's what it was all about. This was a search for a scientific justification for a political agenda that was set well back in the 1960s and the 1970s. Of course, it goes back to the 1930s, and it goes back probably to the dawn of human civilization. But the whole idea is control energy. And if, in fact, the combustion of fossil fuels is having a dangerous impact on climate, you have a recipe for controlling all use of fossil fuels. That's 80–90% of all the energy. If you can control that and shut it down, you can shut down the engines of the world. And that is no less than what the environmental movement wants to do and has been trying to do now, going on 30 years on the global warming debate.
Yeah, that's just it. They want control over us, and it's oil, big energy, gas. This is what powers the planet right now. And they want to take away that power and control everything. I mean, that's why they're moving everything to digital currency, digital everything. Like you got everything through electricity. There's one control mechanism there. They can turn off the energy, turn off the power, they get full control. Same thing with money. If you have cash, they can't control that because that's physically in your hands. It's no different than with controlling the oil. So this has been their goal for the last, as he said, 30 years. Excellent post. That's Joseph Bass, the former president and CEO of the Heartland Institute. He nails it. Next up, we got this clip. It says there's no climate emergency. Geologist Professor Ian Pilmer, it has never been proven that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming.
We are being misled. We are being misled with information which is either cooked or very, very specifically plucked out to make the story look as if we are in a crisis. We're not in a crisis. There is no climate emergency. We are living in the best times you could ever live on planet Earth. And we are so fragile and we're so protected and we're so wealthy that if someone drops a feather, we panic. The key scientific point is it has never been proven that human emissions of carbon dioxide drive global warming. Only 3% of emissions are from humans. The rest is natural, from ocean degassing mainly, but some from volcanoes. So if you're to prove that humans and their emissions of the gas of life change climate, then you also have to prove that the natural emissions, 97% of all emissions, don't change climate. That has never been addressed. We have a fallacy from day one in this whole climate hysteria. It's got nothing to do with the environment. It's got nothing to do with being green, except that being green means you get a huge pile of greenbacks. This is about money. This has got nothing to do with the climate. It's got nothing to do with the environment. It is, can I create a new way to skin the punter alive? And that's what's happening. Just look at your electricity bill and just wonder why in this country we had cheap, reliable electricity. Now it's very expensive. Now your job is threatened because of this expensive electricity. This is probably the biggest con that we've ever had, maybe the biggest con since the Dutch tulip craze. It is a con. It's not underpinned by science.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying that for a while now. It's all about money. The whole climate change movement, they're making money off of it. Whether it's their new technologies or whatever, they all invest in these companies and they push, and they all make piles of cash. All the big cogs of the world are driven by money. People are greedy. It's the easiest way to just connect the dots. I'm like, oh, okay. There are people out there who do things like on this platform here on X, Elon Musk bought this for $50 billion, which is crazy just to have free speech in the world. But there's not a lot of people who would do that stuff. Most people who run these big corporations, driving the big cogs of the world, are driven by only money, and climate change is big business. They have no interest in proving real things. They only prove enough to make it a theory and then run to the bank with. Then they'll move on when they find another way to launder that money. So next up, we got this clip to go along with what Bill Gates was saying about the lab-grown meat and all that. We've got Kamala Harris talking about supporting dietary changes and reducing red meat consumption because of its effects on climate change. And just a little update here, if you're not familiar, Joe Biden has officially stepped down. He put his full support behind Kamala Harris, so that's where America's at. They're trying to figure out who their nominee is going to be in their presidential race. So right now, Kamala Harris is front and center now when it comes to a lot of all the issues.
Certain countries have changed their dietary guidelines to reduce the consumption of red meat in light of the impact of the climate change. Yeah. If elected, will you be supporting change in dietary guidelines? And then how will you plan on implementing the changes so that people effectively change their diets?
Yeah, I mean, and thank you, Carol, for your work on the question. I think of the point that you're raising in a broader context, which is that as a nation, we actually have to have a real priority at the highest level of government around what we eat and in terms of healthy eating, because we have a problem in America. And we can talk about all that we are now, the subject of this conversation, we can talk about the amount of sugar in everything. We can talk about soda, we could go on and on. So the answer is yes. But I'll also say this, the balance that we have to strike here frankly, is about what government can and should do around creating incentives and then banning certain behaviors. I mean, just to be very honest with you, I love cheeseburgers from time to time, right? I mean, I just do. And I think that, but there has to be also what we do in terms of creating incentives that we will eat in a healthy way, that we will encourage moderation, and that we will be educated about the effect of our eating habits on our environment. And we have to do a much better job of that, and the government has to do a much better job of that.
So, I mean, I'm just saying, you love cheeseburgers. I mean, we all do. I don't know whether
you know, from time to
try
time,
the
I don't
Beyond
eat them every
Burger,
day,
the Impossible
but, yeah.
Burger, right? They try, but it's,
Right.
it's not quite the same. That's my personal opinion. But would you support changing the dietary guidelines?
Yes.
You know, the food pyramid, what people
Yes. Yes.
to reduce red meat specifically.
Yes, I would. And
There you have it. She said she would look at reducing red meat consumption in America. One thing I do agree with Kamala Harris on here is the sugar. Sugar in all foods and sodas, it is outrageous. It was something that was a major problem in my life until I fixed that. And in Canada, it's not quite as bad as in America. Their stuff is just sugared right to the gills. And that goes back to the big sugar companies wanting to make a ton of money. I think they released all these phony papers and stuff through the 50s or 60s. And then they got doctors to kind of go on with it. It's same thing with cigarettes. You have the doctors smoking the cigarettes and saying it's good for your health or whatever, back those ads in like this 50s or 60s, 70s. And that ran for many, many decades. Now that we have enough research and stuff, it's like, oh yeah, all this refined sugar is actually terrible for our bodies. Even though it tastes great, that would be one thing that would actually help America. But I think reducing the amount of red meat, like forcing that on people, I don't think they're going to like that too much. But especially in America. Already jumping over to my group, let's see what memes we've got today. The people who currently own the world don't care which ruler you choose. They only care that you keep choosing to be ruled. Vote liberal, suckers. Imagine driving around with that. The reason these toys are critical as kids. Yeah, that's not going to fit on there. Here we've got the different countries representing their Olympic uniforms, and of course the Canadian one. What is this? What is this? Gotta say, as a Canadian, watching this season of America has been absolutely riveting. Kudos to the writers. Yeah, same thing in Canada. What does it mean when someone says, trust the science? It means shut up and obey us. This looks like a very tense living situation. Be the reason someone smiles today. Or blocks you, whatever. There we have it, the woke left. We've got Kamala Harris, we've got the WF, Chrystia Freeland, Bill Gates wanting to stop cows from farting, and Justin Trudeau with his sinister plan potentially merging with the NDP and backstabbing his own party. This man does not have a low he will not go to for getting what he wants. People really need to question, do they want someone with so little integrity running our country? I don't know why liberals seem to think this guy's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because he is a despicable, terrible loser of a leader. But that's my opinion. Let me know what your opinion is down below. Thanks for watching the video here. Be sure to hit the thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep fighting for freedom. I'll see you guys in the next one.